Okay, cool. So my company is Ped Test Australia. We're based in Perth, Western Australia. So we manufacture steroid colorimetric kits. So they're like they're a way of monitoring steroid quality and potency for some things, and they're a very cheap, quick way to check what people are buying to make sure they haven't been scammed. And also, when you combine that with analysis by sending samples to you, because Australia, we don't have any other option of where to send samples. If you put those two together, then you are able to very accurately monitor a brand you are using and see exactly how it is changing over time. And as soon as, essentially, you use a test kit for every single batch, and as soon as anything looks different, you'd send that off for analysis. So brands can do that to monitor every batch of raws that come in. I know several brands that do that at the moment. And the kits are very good at showing when there are characteristic changes in raws when they're made up into oils, and then they get that sent off to get analyzed and check if the potency has changed or that sort of thing. So we promote your business quite a lot. We tell people quite often if the kit results are inconclusive, or it doesn't look quite right, or the brand is disputing it. So the kit result may show it negative, but the brand is insisting that it is correct, that they have the right compound, then we say send it for analysis. So that's why we want to talk to you, because we promote your services quite a lot, but not many people understand what it is you do and how it is done.
Yeah, well, we're actually fully and pretty well at the moment equipped chemical analysis laboratory, and we're mostly doing chromatography, which is the kind of an analysis when you take something and you separate it into a different constituents of the sample. Like you have a mixture of something, and if you want to test it, the easiest way is to separate each part, and then you can just measure one part of those. Like, for example, in the oil, in each oil you have benzyl benzoate, benzyl alcohol, the fatty acids that compose the oil itself, and then you have the steroid. And it would be rather difficult to measure the steroid directly in the mix of all that. So we have these fancy machines that all they do is to separate them, separate the sample into different constituents, different molecules, and at the end you have some sort of detector which basically gives you some sort of a response. The most common detectors, I mean, I'm a huge nerd into this kind of stuff, but I don't explain it in English quite a lot, so I'm sorry if it's not perfect. Okay. But at the end, you usually have some sort of a detector at the end of a chromatographic system. And the most common is an UV detector. Like if you dissolve something in the water, a peptide in the water, or an anabolic steroid in a clear liquid, not water, but for example, let's say methanol, you're not seeing anything. But if you dissolve some sort of a dye in water, the more dye you add, the stronger the color. And the testosterone, it has no color that we can see with the naked eye, but actually in the UV spectrum of the light, it sort of has a color. And the more there is in the solution at the end of the separating system, the stronger the color is. So you just measure how strong the color is, you compare it to a known standard, like you get something of a known concentration. And this method is absolutely wonderful, because if you have 1 milligram in a liter, and then you have 2 milligrams in a liter, the signal from the second one is going to be twice as strong as the first one, which seems logical, but it's quite often not like that, and with many
Yeah.
detection methods.
Yeah.
So with UV, it is like this, and it gives you a huge spectrum of linear response. Like if you have 500 milligrams in 1 liter, it might not be 500 times the area, but in the amounts that we're usually looking at, it's just as simple as making that sort of calculation.
Yeah.
That UV detector is what we use for routine testing because it's the easiest to work with, it's hardest to make a mistake with it. It's actually the most accurate and precise and cheapest way, which sounds weird, but it's like that. The cheapest option here is actually by far the most accurate and most precise way to measure when you're looking at a huge amount.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the anabolic steroids, a pill, a raw powder, or anything, if we have a milligram or 200 milligrams of something in a milliliter, it's actually an insanely huge amount. We have to dilute everything down because the machines are made to look like for a pesticide that has been sprayed over a wide area. It's all of these machines that are made to look for trace amount of something.
Yeah.
So we have to dilute it. So we have to dilute it all.
That was something I was going to ask you about actually, is how you guys stay accurate with high dosages. I used to rent out analytical equipment for the mining industry, and one of the issues was often having a standard for the high levels and low was hard to get. So if you only had a standard at, I don't know, 200 milligrams, and then you had a sample come in at 5,000, you couldn't keep it accurate at the really high levels. And we noticed, recently saw a result. There was one analyzed by you guys, and then the same sample was sent to a lab in Canada, and theirs was wildly out, to the point where it was obviously wrong. So I think some labs might have troubles with the very high dosages.
Yeah, was it the LabMax company in the Canada?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've seen they sometimes put out extremely weird results, even if it's not a high dosed product. So it might not have been that.
So it may
But
not be just
usually,
because it's high dose.
yeah. I'm keeping an eye on pretty much all the competition that I might have, pretty much everybody who's into this stuff,
Yeah.
so that I can do it better.
Are
I
there
mean,
many
I
labs
take
around the world that do this?
not really. I'm I'm aware only of a single legal laboratory that does this kind of testing, and that's Lab for Talks in Poland.
Right.
And usually I mean, a lot of people are not confident in my work because whatever. So I usually suggest they might opt for the Polish Lab for Talks company. They're a legal company. They have a huge experience in this sort of things. They're used for legal kind of stuff like law enforcement testing.
Yeah.
And there were some other labs like LabMax in Canada, which I found questionable at best. There are some laboratories in Canada, UK, which do so-called FTIR testing. I'm not sure I'm gonna pronounce this correctly. Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy.
Yep.
And that one is really good for IDing stuff that is in high concentration, but it's really terrible for quantitation.
Right.
So when they output any sort of quantitative result, especially in something they're not exceptionally experienced in, like if they test drugs and they run 100,000 tests on, let's say, cocaine with that, I will believe their quantitative result. But if they get a couple of steroid results here and there and they output some sort of result with FTIR, I'm gonna be a little bit suspicious about that.
Yep. Yep.
And there was there one more legal lab in Switzerland, CIMAC, that I don't think accepts samples anymore from anybody. There's French, how was it, Chemtox, and that's about it for the actual incorporated laboratories.
Yeah.
And there are laboratories which are actual corporations, but they have no legal paperwork to actually work with this kind of samples.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of laboratories that are outright fake, like they don't even exist, and somebody just made them up in order to scam people or to push some sort of a brand or etc.
Yes.
So I always recommend that people are extremely suspicious about such labs, because a nice branding, a nice website, everything, it can be done in a couple of hours.
Yes.
And I've seen entirely faked laboratories. Like there was an address in Thailand in an office building, and I got a Thai friend here in Prague. So I made him call, and the receptionist, I was like, no, there's no such thing. There are only offices here. I would know. So
Yeah.
that was less than a month ago, actually.
Yeah.
So,
It
and
doesn't surprise me. There's so many scams going around when it comes to steroids.
yeah, I mean, people are unscrupulous, and a lot of people, when they see nice graphics or something, they're like, okay, must be legit.
Yes, there's a lot of people who think the same. Like some of the steroid brands here in Australia have beautiful packaging and hologram stickers and scratch off code labels, and you go to a website and put it in and it says, yeah, this is legit, and you test it and there's nothing in there, or it's swapped with something. So yeah, it doesn't take much to make fancy packaging and fancy websites.
Yeah. Actually, there's a lot of brands that are specialized at this, even in Europe. Like if you make fake packaging, like fancy holograms, a website verification systems, all the PR machine is oiled up, and then you get busted that there's actually nothing in the oil, you can rebrand in a day and start
Yeah.
over again. But if you're not putting anything in the oil or the tablets at all, or some you're not actually risking anything from the law enforcement.
Yeah.
If they raid you, well,
You have
we're
nothing
just
illegal.
making these labels. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's actually their strategy, because they don't have to be afraid of the law enforcement,
Mm.
and they don't have to be afraid of the clients who actually did something illegal by ordering
Yep.
the performance enhancing drugs. So there's a couple of businesses like this that actually made it their proper business strategy.
Yep. What countries do you see samples being sent from? Where are your customers?
Well, I think it's in the past year, there's been this insane huge boom with GLP-1 agonists, peptides,
Mm.
semaglutide, tirzepatide, and it went from 0 to 100 real fast. So way over half of the samples we test now are peptides. And I would say that 90% of the peptides come over from the US and China.
Yeah.
The China is the manufacturers getting us to verify the results, because a lot of US clients won't even accept, or even wholesalers won't even accept the packages without the third-party testing, especially because there's still a lot of screw-ups going on. The
Yeah.
business expanding so fast, it leads it when your business suddenly grows like 5,000%, you cannot keep up and screw ups start happening. And the same is going on in China with the factories, so they prefer to get stuff checked by a third party, because a lot
Yeah.
of times they cannot even believe their own internal controls.
Yes.
They want to save face, and they're like, yeah, it's same as usual, while it in fact is not.
Yes. I
And then
tell
there's
people
the
all the time,
US.
do not believe the certificates sent by the Chinese manufacturers. Like I could type one up in 2 minutes. There's nothing legit about them at all. have to do third party, someone who's not invested in it. So for example, the brand's own results. So if someone is sending you a certificate that they've done of their own brand, you can't really trust that either. I've heard of people being able to buy Janoshik certificates and they just change the label, change the, put their own name on it or whatever, or change the date, and have been selling them. So that I know there's one website where they've been taking certificates off one of the forums and putting it on their website as being their own certificates. So yours get faked a bit in Australia, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, I'm aware. But the thing is, they usually don't realize the fact that we're a legitimate company, and I can simply inquire and get their domain shut. I've
Oh, wow.
I actually got a couple domains shut that tried to fake either my reports, or there was outright like Janoshik.net or something.
Yeah.
And I simply sued. I had a website shut by the I don't know, the people responsible for handling that.
Yep.
And then I actually put a suit on them because
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
they're affecting your business by doing things like that. Absolutely.
yes, I mean they copied the website, changed the domain, and they were issuing fake reports to
Yeah.
push some sort of unknown Romanian company.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine noticed like really fast, before they even went public. So I just put in a complaint with the domain register. They shut it down like real fast.
Good.
And then I sued them for, I don't even remember what did we sue them for, because we have a lawyer to deal with this kind of stuff, because I simply cannot handle it myself anymore, and I
Yeah.
always get I have a little short fuse, so I cannot deal with this kind of stuff anymore.
Yeah. Understandable. So in the samples you're getting, like the steroid samples you're getting at the moment, what's the most common issues you see? Is it mainly underdosing, or are you seeing swapped products a lot? Do you see a lot of bunk, like fake, non-existent steroid products?
Well, actually, oh, there's one a bunk product that contains absolutely nothing. That's a staple over the years. It's
Ah,
faked. It's faked Rimobolan amps. Like if I'm seeing a Rimobolan
ampules.
ampule, yeah,
Ah,
you know the Bayer Rimobolan.
yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
it's Bayer
yeah,
Primo.
yeah.
Ah,
It's extremely common, and when I see something on the table, there's like 80% chance it's gonna contain nothing but the oil.
yep.
That's like the most common one. But about the rest, I'm not sure. The samples that actually get to me, there's a huge bias. It's
Yeah,
usually from sources that want to test their stuff to confirm it's good. It's people who are, it's clients of the sources, vendors that actually provide some sort of a credit for testing.
yeah,
So I think there's it's a statistic error when the good samples get fueled to me get a lot more than the bad ones,
yeah,
because the people who are selling bunk or fake stuff, they're usually, it happens a lot more off the internet than the actual good stuff where the competition is high, and there's
yeah,
a lot more incentives to get tested something that's good, both for
yeah,
people, for the clients, and for the vendors. But what we're seeing a lot is some products being switched, like a lot of products, like let's say anastrozole or letrozole, they're used in a milligram quantities. So, and the scale of manufacture, let's say it's a couple tens of kilos. So if something goes wrong, or if there is one batch bad, it's going to be around for years.
yeah,
Like there was a mislabeled anastrozole, which was not anastrozole at all, but letrozole. And we started seeing that a couple of years ago. I don't dare to take a guess how long has been, but it's been a couple of years, and we're still seeing to this day anastrozole or letrozole being sold as anastrozole in finished products because people buy the raws, they don't test them, they press them into pills, or they even send the raw powder and it tests as letrozole. And this issue has been around for years. So I'm not sure if somebody's simply selling it as one and the same, or if it's been one batch, huge batch, that's been wrong.
Yeah.
But it's a common. And then there's the classics like nandrolone decanoate or boldenone undecillinate. I'm sorry if I've never said those words in person, actually.
I know
So
what
I'm
you
sorry.
mean.
Yeah. I mostly just do typing in English,
Yeah.
and I don't really, I'm not really used to talking at all. Anyway, this long ester thing is they usually have huge purity issues. I think it's because their melting point is pretty low. So the Chinese have trouble actually purifying them.
Right. So what
So
other things are usually in there? Do you mean like other steroids or other esters or just other contaminants?
It's either, how would I put it? Byproducts from the synthesis or unbound ester. They
Yeah.
first make the steroid like nandrolone by itself, and then they attach the ester to it.
Yeah.
And the ester is some sort of an acid, and usually, well, always not, it doesn't go like 100% of nandrolone that you put in and 100% of decanoic acid that you put in. It doesn't react all, and you need to remove the excess, the unreacted bits. So, and when there is a little more left, you get lower purity. And actually, this is something that people can tell by the eye, because steroids, they form crystals. And when the lower the purity, the harder it is for crystals to form. So for example, if you have a pure nandrolone decanate, it forms crystals up to 40 degrees Celsius. But if you have impure one, it starts losing the crystallic structure at 30 degrees. So it melts.
Interesting.
So when you're getting a completely melted nandrolone decanoate and it's like 30 degrees only or 25, or testosterone enanthate that looks more like a wax than a white powder, there's a huge likelihood that it either went through an extreme temperature or it's low purity.
Yep. Cool.
That's actually about it. The longer the ester, the more issues there are with this, with some notable exceptions like methanol enanthate, no issues with purity. If there's any, it's usually very old stock that actually degraded through the time. But boldenone, andesile something, nandrolone decanoate, and in recent years, there have been issues with testosterone enanthate and testosterone cypionate. But we've seen some issues with ROS. It's mostly that they contain excess acid or unbound ester, or they're containing synthesis byproducts, or actually we've seen cloudy precipitate in the 10 milliliter vials themselves, and it's usually moisture.
Yeah.
Because it's immiscible with the oil, and if the raws get moist, or the oil is sterilized, or the vials are sterilized with steam, or somehow steam gets inside, it tends to do that in the oil. But
yeah, I've seen a few of those.
Yeah.
Do you often test for heavy metals?
Well, actually, we started offering routine heavy metal testing again about a year ago, and we get a couple requests every month, and we actually have never tested anything that contain anywhere near dangerous amounts of heavy metals. It simply doesn't appear to be a thing in anabolic steroids. It's not a thing in peptides. Only one positive result we've had was an industrial grade DNP, and that was, I think I can say, roughly 10 years ago. And it was some sort of industrial grade DNP from China. And if you actually run it at phase melting doses, you could have gotten an unrecommended intake of heavy metals. But still, the DNP would kill you a lot faster than the heavy metals would.
Yeah.
So I simply, a lot of people just want for the peace of mind or vendors to gain an advertising edge over their competition, like
Yeah.
they don't get them heavy metals tested and we do.
Yeah.
But
That's good
it's
to know,
it's
though.
it's
That is really good to know.
it's we have yet to come to get our hands on a sample that actually tests anywhere near dangerous levels of heavy metals.
Yep. So what would you consider to be dangerous? Because what concerns me is if they're very small amounts, but some of the guys who take this stuff take doses over very long times, and whether that cumulatively can end up being dangerous.
Yeah, well, actually, I wanted to talk about this too. Like when people see that the heavy metals undetected, like there's some sort of detection limits, and if it's
Yeah.
under that, they're happy. But if they detect something, they start panicking, and I'm like, no, you need to chill out. Even drinking water has permissible levels of heavy metals. Like
Hmm.
they're always going to be in everywhere you consume. There's gonna be heavy metals. You can intake them, but you would have to take a lot more than those permissible levels are to
Yeah.
actually cause you harm. And your body can get rid of them at some rate as well. And really, if you're taking in like 200 grams of testosterone a week, you got a lot bigger issues than the heavy metals.
All right, cool.
But
No worries. So
yeah.
what when it comes to analyzing steroids, and any other of these other contaminants that could be in here, like leftover from the chemical reactions done in China, what kind of things does your analysis method not be able to see? So are there certain things that you won't see on an analysis of a steroid?
Yeah, we actually do the analysis only for the anabolic steroids. Like if you send us an oil that's part rat poison mixed with, I don't know, wastewater and anabolic steroids, the routine test that we do is just for the anabolic steroid content. Like there's this much trenbolone, there's this much testosterone enanthate, because you cannot have tests for everything.
Yeah.
So you need
I think
to
a
keep
lot of
it
people
good value.
assume that you have a magic machine that you put something in and it just tells you every single thing that is in that sample, which of course doesn't happen.
Yeah, no such thing exists. And you can either choose, like you're going to have a method that is fast, that is reliable, and that gets you test for like 30 or 40 most common anabolic steroids at once at a good value price. Or you can, for example, have testing to ID or the volatile and semi-volatile chemicals, or you can have heavy metals with it, but the costs start rising exponentially. It's not, there is no lab in the world that can test for everything because there's simply no such thing. So if you're looking for some contaminant and and it's one single contaminant and you know exactly what it is, well, then we can take a look even with our stuff here. Or if you
Yeah.
have some general common screening like heavy metals, or you want to screen a sample for steroids, you at least have a chemical group. So, okay, we can put it on the GCMS. That's very good for IDing steroids and steroid impurities. But if somebody wants like, okay, so let me know what's in the sample. We are nope, not doing that. You either have to at least know what you wanted to test to have it
Yeah.
tested for.
You have to have an idea of what you're looking for. Yeah. And yeah, chemistry doesn't, I don't think many people understand chemistry doesn't work. It's not just this magical, press a button and everything is, listed. It's not how it works. You usually have to have an idea of what you're looking for to be able to identify stuff.
Yeah, and that's just ID. To actually get a quantity of something, you usually have to have a standard of it. So you need to either make it yourself or you need to have a place to buy it. Like a lot of these anabolic steroids that we've dealt with, the standards are simply not available commercially. Like they're not commercially sold at all. Or there's this one company in the US that has a database of 20,000 of them, and they take 2 months to reply to emails. So it's actually faster to contract a chemist to actually make it for us.
Yeah.
So we've done that as well. And well, a lot of people watch CSI something, and they think it works like that, but
yeah,
it's not really.
Some girl with pigtails out the back is, doing stuff on a laptop in 2 minutes has an answer. Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Usually it's me and one of my coworkers that does the service things, and we're just screaming a lot of obscenities at the machines, just hoping to get them work again.
Yep, I know that feeling.